Hi, my name is Esteban Kelly, and I am a worker owner and trainer with AORTA, which is the Anti-Oppression Resource and Training Alliance. And we're a worker co-op that works with different groups to support them through facilitation and training and education and sometimes conflict resolution. And I want to share in depth our process for actually facilitating a conflict resolution process. I should say that when we're sitting down with any group of people to do a conflict resolution process, we actually draw out the map that I am about to show you. We draw our own version of this, sometimes on big paper with a larger group, or sometimes just on a small sheet of paper, so that people have a sense of what our work is, so that they have a sense of the flow of the conversation and where we're at any point. So as we move through some of these different areas, I will guide you through it, and I might be toggling back and forth a little bit just to explain some of these pieces. Okay, so we'll be working off of that map as an overall process. Part of why this map is curvy and it has a lot of these different dips and turns is that we like to explain to people that conflict resolution is not a straightforward process. There's no one way that it happens. It's not formulaic, and so there are moments where even as we sort of illustrated here, you might circle back and do a couple rounds, a couple passes through certain questions down here. So the process can be adaptable to who's in the room and what your needs are and how much time you have, and we want that to be reflected somehow. So it's kind of like this treasure map looking thing where you'll get to the end at some point, and that may only be the end of what your time is for that day. It might not be that everything is all resolved, but you take everything one bit at a time. Okay, so starting here at the beginning, we begin with check-ins, okay? Check-ins are an opportunity for everyone who is in the room to get grounded. You want people to be able to check in and say where they're at, what they're doing. That's not about the conflict itself, that's about their day. That way it allows people to metaphorically or literally leave everything at the door. When they walk into the room, they can say, here's all the stuff that's on my mind, I'm sharing it, I've got some pain in my wrists from carpal tunnel, or there were some issues at my child's preschool, and so I'm just going to put that all out of mind right now, but you can share everything that's going on, the context of your life, your mood, maybe how hungry you are, all those. And as the facilitator, I recognize that I also am a person in the room, and so I model that by actually checking in myself. Because it's not about me, I don't go in a lot of depth, but I do share for people what's going on for me. If I, feeling a little tired or haven't had a lot of time to get grounded in the process, I'll sort of share that, and then when that's all done, we can leave it behind. The next step is moving on to community agreements, and we shared a little bit of a module for what it looks like to map out community agreements and why it's an important step to take, offering you as the facilitator a bit of a job description for what guidelines or group dynamics for communication you're expected to uphold. The third thing we do is intention setting, and what I'll do is I'll usually bring out an extra sheet of paper, and I'll have everyone who's involved, I'll write intentions in big letters in the middle of the paper, and then I'll let everyone sort of grab markers, pencils, papers, pens, whatever it is, and write some of their intentions that they're bringing to the room. You don't need to carve out a lot of time for people to do this, but it is helpful to take a good 2 to 7 minutes for people to really breathe and think quietly and be simultaneously working on the same piece of paper. It allows for a sense of an initial sense of cohesion, that we're all doing this work. Our intentions are shared on one sheet of paper. You don't need to have the same intentions as the other person, but they are sort of all there physically in the space and in the room. And it's another thing that you want to have anchored in the conversation. So if there's a table that is in between everyone that's in the room, just stick it right there on the table. Or if there's a wall that's next to the participants, I'll hang it on the wall. And I'll often use it as a way to triangulate as a facilitator, right? So if there's a moment where tensions are getting raised and escalated, or where we're veering off from goals, or there isn't a lot of empathy happening, I'll sometimes ask everyone to pause and take a breath and to take a moment to look at their intentions. Remind them, here's what you all said when we first came here. This is what your ultimate goals or what your intentions were. And some of that might be to let go of what happened in the past and listen with an open mind. So it is an important step to write those. Okay. Next, we have the beginning of the real stuff. This is a question that I ask for everyone who's in the room. Usually I will have done an intake, meaning a separate conversation with everyone involved in the conflict who is going to be there in person, to get their sense of what is going on and how it's affecting them, and maybe what some of their hopes are for our session together. I keep all of that stuff confidential, and then I ask them when we're all sitting there together to volunteer. Whoever's going to go first will say what is going on for them. And there I don't say what is the entire problem, what's the source of it, but I ask them to really just drill into this question: what do they perceive the conflict to be? Right? That begins with questions like, what are you seeing happen? What have you heard? These are often leading questions that get at some of the facts and tangibles, things that we can all have a sense of. The second question is, how is it affecting you? This is important because it allows people to then have that moment of checking in and saying, here is how my life has become much more stressful, or here's how it's made it more difficult for me to be engaged in our work together, or to relate to you, or to feel like my voice is valued, or to be patient with you. It's made it harder for me to be patient. So all of the things that could be going on for why someone feels affected to different degrees or impacted by the conflict that's happening. I will also allow, as I started showing you earlier on the map, I'll allow a process for people to go around a few times. So if there's a circle of people in the room, maybe person A, then person B, then person C. When person C is done, I'll loop back and offer if person A wants to add more and if person B wants to add more, right? This is an initial moment of people being able to say their own perspective of what they perceive the conflicts to be, and to check in with what's affecting them. It also gives you a lot of information as a facilitator about what they feel is important, because sometimes they'll be repeating themselves. If they keep saying, this is really affecting me, I just really feel like I'm distracted at work, or I don't feel safe, and you hear them saying that over and over again, that gives you a sense that maybe they don't feel heard. Maybe it's something that they have said before outside of the process, and I'll often pause and ask people to mirror back or to repeat. Are you really hearing what she's saying? It sounds like this is a big deal. It might be helpful even for you for her to hear that from you, that you've heard that, that this is affecting you. Like, I hear that this is affecting you in this way. The stakes in doing that are actually quite low, because you're not saying, I take responsibility for all of this. You're just saying, I understand that this is your perspective. It's kind of like that low ball, that weak apology, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And later on, we can get to the real nitty-gritty stuff where people can take responsibility for things. But at that stage, I really just listen for what seems to be emerging as important things. While you're facilitating a conflict resolution process, it can be helpful to take your own notes. I'll often tell people that I will be taking notes throughout the process and get their permission to do so. Otherwise, just you'll have to follow along in your head or something, because you don't want to do anything if you don't have the full permission for the people involved. Okay. Similar to the last question, this box is pretty important. You want people to be able to talk about what their needs are. And their wants and their needs are not the same. So I ask people to really separate out what is essential, what do they absolutely need to have happen, what absolutely needs to change. And sometimes that's not I need everything to be resolved, but I need to know that we're both bought into a process of resolving this, or I need to know that you're working on this outside of our conversation. I need to know that you're working on listening. I need to know that you're committed to staying in this workplace. Whatever those kinds of things are. The wants can be a little more. I invite people to really bring in whatever they want there, but to try to separate out the difference between, it would be nice to feel like we could be friends again, or it'd be nice to feel like we could go on walks and talk about things whenever our dynamic gets escalated. But what I absolutely need is, I need to feel safe in my workplace. And once again, I'll allow people to loop back if they need to. While people are going over their wants and needs, I try to start noting or flagging if I'm hearing goals or any timelines that are attached to that. I'll also try to really interactively compile that. So as I'm listening to people stating what their needs and wants are, I'll take notes. I'll listen for commonalities. If both parties are saying, I'm hearing that, then I'll note that as, it seems like we have some unity around some of these issues, and I'll throw that to them as a group. It does help to feel like we're making progress if you can flag those things early on. And even if things a want, if you have a sense that other people are willing to adopt or to meet or agree to someone's desire as opposed to their need, go ahead and flag that early on and let people know it sounds like we can sort of get on the same page about that, because it also helps to bring a spirit of mutuality and like you're making progress. So you want to loop back and do that as many times as you need to. Be aware of time as you're doing this, and start mapping out goals and timelines. I wouldn't get too caught up in this process of, you need to do this by such and such day, but to have a sense of, we're going to try to meet every 2 weeks, or we're going to have a check-in with our shared supervisor once a quarter, or whatever needs to happen. Great. Part of the goals and timelines, and this is an initial process of starting to pull those out, it really, where the rubber hits the road is in this component. What are you going to do about it? So I'll then have a process, just like up here, where each person got to talk about how they were being affected and what their wants and needs were. We'll do a go-around, and we'll have a moment for every person to say what they're going to do, what they can commit to, some of the stuff that they heard that they're willing to try or they're willing to attempt, and to also make requests and say, I have this thing that I said was a need. Maybe it could only be a want. But I want to hear you commit to this thing. Once you're done with this, and it can take a while of looping back around several times, we move to letting go. Letting go is an important stage because it's where kind of a lot of magic happens. Sometimes it's only 5 minutes of time set aside for it. Sometimes it can be 10, 15 minutes, but it allows people to just sort of not have to think about anything beyond checking in with themselves and saying, I'm willing to let go of all of my resentment for this conflict, or I'm willing to let go of that time that I felt really disrespected, and that's in the past, or I'm willing to let go of feeling like we can never work together. I'm letting that go. So it's a moment for people to just sort of pause for a moment, think, and then as ideas occur to them, they can just share things that they're letting go of, and that can be good. A lot of it can be really emotional language. I'm letting go of feeling frustrated or furious or resentful, or I'm letting go of ever thinking that we're going to be the best friends in the world again. I don't need that to be our dynamic. All of that is fair. I think the important thing is for people to be able to be honest with what's going on for them. Finally, just like check-ins, you want to do a checkout at the end. That also can be physical. It can be questions like, how are you feeling right now? What are some next steps that you feel like you need to have really concrete? And lastly, some evaluations and just goodbyes. Evaluations can be where are you at? How is the process? It can also be a really good moment for you as a facilitator to get feedback before you're really checked out and done. Getting feedback is really important because it allows you to grow as a facilitator for the process. You might have your own evaluation, your own sense of what worked well or what didn't work, but it's really important to hear directly from people about that. And you might be doing a follow-up session for the conflict resolution, maybe even with that same group of people. So it's a moment for you to hear more about, I really feel like it would be good for us to have more silence in between people speaking, or those kinds of commentary and feedback are really helpful to hear from people. So that's our sort of overview of conflict resolution process. I'll leave you with this map, and there are other modules that you can check out. I will be talking about some best practices that we use, tips for facilitators, in another AORTA module on conflict resolution. Thanks so much.